the implications are that by the end of this month, all the surpluses of oil around the world will be close to being exhausted, and that when we get into June, we then will see the physical shortages working their way through the whole global manufacturing and supply chains. What does that mean? It means recession, starting soon after June. I think we've got to be very careful talking about what oil price. Because if we are talking about the prices that you're quoting, which is the futures prices, not the physical prices, the futures prices are easily manipulated. So if you look at the physical prices in Asia, you're talking about $200.
Market analyst Simon Hunt warns that the global oil market could face severe physical shortages by the end of the month as worldwide surplus reserves rapidly disappear. According to Hunt, once June begins, supply chain disruptions may spread across manufacturing, transportation, and industrial sectors worldwide, increasing the risk of a major global recession. He argues that official futures prices fail to reflect the true condition of the physical oil market, claiming real oil prices in parts of Asia are already trading near $200 per barrel. Hunt believes manipulated paper markets continue hiding the seriousness of the energy crisis, while inflation pressures intensify globally. Rising energy costs, weakening supply chains, and slowing economic growth could create a dangerous combination for financial markets. As uncertainty grows, investors are increasingly turning toward gold, silver, and hard assets for protection against economic instability and currency debasement. Now, we present the clips from Simon Hunt's interview. Before we continue to discuss this, please subscribe to our channel and activate the bell icon for timely updates. Thank you and enjoy the video.
I think there's probably, we've said for a long time that we're probably going to see gold at 4,000. Why is it falling? A lot of gold held in this part of the world has had to have been sold because people needed liquidity. And I guess in parts of Asia, it's the same thing.
So it did its job.
I mean, India is probably the country that's going to be hardest hit, not only by oil and oil prices, but the impact of the straits being shut down on fertilizers. About 20% of the world's fertilizers flows through the straits. Some of the fertilizer products, it's 45%. You're already beginning to see shortages, problems in India. And people that I speak to are saying that India had a peak production, rice production, of 150 million tons last year. That's going to be hit hard. And India will probably be forced to ban the export of rice, which last year was 27 million tons. So a good portion of total. And that will affect countries all around Asia. It's not just going to be Asia that's impacted, it's going to be globally. Global food prices are going to rise very sharply over the next 2 years. I did some work looking at the FAO food price index. And the last time we had a big fall, a big rise in the index was in 2022. And then I went back to the 70s and I found that from trough to peak was a percentage change of 38%. And I think that's the minimum that we can see over the next 2 years. And that's an overall index globally. So you combine that with weather patterns that are appearing, the super El Nino, 61% chance, which means drought, and there's a high chance that either next year or in 2020, either later this year or in 2027, we get a repeat of the 1930s Midwest Dust Bowl decade caused by the Gleisberg cycle. All these things are coming together, not just war cycles, geopolitical cycles, but food cycles. There's a very good reason why you shouldn't be holding government debt on a 1 year plus basis. And that is on our work, the minimum inflation that we are likely to see by the end of 2028. I say by, may well be before. US inflation peaked in 1980, 13.5%. Global inflation, same time, 12%. What does that mean for bond yields? The bond vigilantes want a real return on their money.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to see, go back to what did we see in 1980, 81 on the 10-year? I think it was 15.3%.
Rising geopolitical tensions, oil disruptions, and worsening food shortages could trigger a powerful inflation wave across the global economy. Analysts warn that gold may eventually surge toward $4,000 as investors flee weakening paper assets and seek safe haven protection. India could face severe pressure from rising oil prices and fertilizer shortages as critical shipping routes remain under threat. With rice production expected to decline, export bans may spread food inflation throughout Asia and beyond. Experts also warn that weather cycles, drought risks, and a potential return of Dust Bowl-style conditions could intensify the global food crisis over the next 2 years. Meanwhile, bond markets may struggle as inflation accelerates toward levels last seen during the 1970s and early 1980s. As governments battle rising debt, weakening currencies, and economic instability, gold and silver continue gaining attention as long-term stores of wealth and financial protection. Let's get back to the interview.
The Shanghai Composite was down yesterday and was down again today, which tells you how Chinese investors are feeling about the summit. And in fact, friends of mine who are in Shanghai at the moment, talking to industrial people, etc., they were just shaking their heads, non-event. And actually, the tone was set when Trump arrived Beijing airport. The steps were lowered, and to his surprise, he was not met by President Xi. He was met by an underling. That set the tone. Then in the cavalcade into the city, there were no flags flying, no American flags flying on poles or passers-by. And in the China Daily, which is the big daily newspaper, the arrival of Trump was a sidebar on the front page, whereas the main story on the front page was the meeting between Xi and the president of Tajikistan. Wow. So that sets the tone. What was, from what I hear, Washington did not prepare for the summit. Normally they have Sherpas there setting up this, that, and the other, agreeing things, but in a typical Trump manner, he winged it. What was achieved? In my view, from what I hear, very little indeed. First of all, Xi made it very clear that Taiwan is the big issue, and that if Washington continues with their policy of encouraging independence, then the relationship between China and America will be fraught with difficulty. Trump's problems to change that tack are extremely difficult because Congress won't go along with it. So that's the first marker to put down. It was interesting that Trump arrived with his entourage of 20 CEOs whose combined equity valuation was $16.5 trillion compared with China's GDP last year of 20 trillion. So Trump arrived thinking, I am the big fish in the pond. Look who I've got with me. But then if you look, which are the 10 biggest banks in the world? 4 are Chinese, 2 are American, 2 are French, and 1 Japanese, and 1 UK HSBC. And what was interesting is I watched quite a lot of the videos. On every opportunity, Trump was trying to ingrace himself with Xi. It was almost, how can I put it, I need you rather than you need me. Then when you look at the cards that Xi is holding, there are not many that Trump was holding.
Global markets are closely watching the growing tension between the United States and China as investors question the outcome of the recent Trump-Xi summit. Reports from Shanghai suggest Chinese investors viewed the meeting as largely insignificant, with weak market sentiment reflected in declines within the Shanghai Composite Index. Analysts noted symbolic diplomatic signals during Trump's arrival in Beijing, where President Xi reportedly did not personally greet him, reinforcing perceptions of China's growing confidence on the world stage. Taiwan remains the central issue dividing Washington and Beijing, with China warning that continued U.S. support for Taiwanese independence could severely damage future relations. Meanwhile, China's financial influence continues expanding globally, with several of the world's largest banks now Chinese-owned. As geopolitical tensions rise and economic uncertainty deepens, investors are increasingly turning toward gold, silver, and hard assets as protection against global financial instability and shifting world power dynamics. Share your thoughts on his analysis in the comment section below. If you find this video informative, please support us by turning on notifications to stay informed about our latest videos. See you in the following video. Thanks for watching.